Many of us strive to be the best versions of ourselves in the workplace. We set seemingly impossible goals. We battle to achieve them. Often in that pursuit, we forget to take the same level of care and diligence with ourselves and with the ones we love the most. LodeStar is about those moments, the ones that shape go-to-market journeys and the humans behind them. We'll dive into the wins, the mistakes, and the lessons that don't fit neatly into a playbook. Hi everyone, Cliff Simon here. Welcome back for another episode of LodeStar, and I'm joined by Kyle Norton, CRO of Owner.com. How are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Well, I know a lot of folks do know you, but if you could just give a quick background, like how'd you end up where you are today? Like, what was that journey like?
So fell into sales like many of us, and fell into sales management like very quickly because it was coming out of the 08, 09 recession. And I've been doing tech revenue leadership ever since. So was a first-time VP of sales at a company called League, and we went 0 to 25 million over 3 years, then spent 3 years at Shopify in a couple different roles. I ran go-to-market for our point-of-sale product. Then I ran sales and post-sales in the Canadian market after we did a big reorg. And then the last 3.5 years have been with Owner.com. So think of us like Shopify plus HubSpot for the little tiny restaurants that you order from on a Friday night, like mom and pop independents, the long tail. And started early, like we were 2 million and change. Now we're well into the 50 million range and still growing at a pretty good clip and having a blast.
What's that year over year look like?
Like close to 2.5. That's all. Still, yeah, we're growing this year like basically the same. We might actually beat last year's growth percentage. So yeah, we've maintained the velocity as obviously the base has gotten bigger. So very efficient, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit. So
we can definitely get into the efficiency piece, but that TAM is massive. How do you continually make sure that the messaging lands and that the product is where it's at in order to make sure your customers are getting the value?
Yeah. So we spend more time on that than anything. It's a very customer and product centric company. Sales clips along, and we basically just always deliver the number, and so we don't have to spend as many of our calories like sweating how to grow. Pretty consistently, we've either shrank our ICP or like made it more difficult. Like added friction to the buying journey to improve the first 90-day retention and customer quality, and we're really rigorous about how we dial in retention and the economics. And so a lot of that is just like the weekly, monthly discipline. We do like a 90-minute churn review every single month where we go like painstakingly through a macro analysis of all the churn, what's changing, what's trending. We'll go like churn by churn and investigate really specific instances where, hey, this like looks like a good customer on paper, and then we like didn't get the result we wanted. So we do like a in-depth diagnostic that's run by the incredible data science team. And we've got, like our comp plan is sales reps, their quotas and their comps all on launched customers, not closed won. And so we've like really just tuned all the knobs and dials to try to maximize retention, because in this market with a long tail, a lot of these businesses are just going to go out. And sure, there's retention, there's churn you can't do anything about.
Yeah.
And if you want the economics to work, and if you want the business to have that flywheel effect, then you just got to like be painstaking about trying to solve those questions. And
so knowing that in your market, right, those companies, those small mom and pop restaurants, how many of them make it past 3-4 years?
Very little. Yeah, like depends on the stats you look at, but the survivorship of an independent restaurant might be like 60% year over year. And like so it skews because a lot of first year restaurants like never make it. So like the churn,
they make it like 90 days.
Yeah. The churn for new restaurants could be like 50%. But then there's a bunch of institutions that, are around for decades. So the numbers are skewed, but yeah, that's the market. And we see it as a competitive moat more than an obstacle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because, we've been able to figure it out. There's a bunch of competitors of ours who have grown to a certain place, and then they just hit a wall. And a bunch of that is because, they haven't really dialed in the product results, and they don't have that retention motion. And they're too sales and marketing centric. And so you see this across a bunch of SMB vertical SaaS companies who come hot out of the gates, and then they go out to try to raise a C, and the interest from the market is very, very different, because as you go from A to C, now it's not just like, oh, like you're growing, the number's going up, that's all we need to put in money. Now they want to look at the unit economics. They want to understand churn and retention in a much more in-depth manner. And so a bunch of these companies hit the wall, which we've been pretty thoughtful about avoiding.
Something you said earlier that was interesting. Right now, you're paying for launched customers, not closed won customers. I love that shift to the right. What's the shift there on the comp plan, and how do you guys define launch? And is there anywhere, it's a long compound, is there anywhere else within your org where you've taken a similar mindset?
Yeah, so BDR doesn't get paid on meetings or ops. BDR only gets paid on close one. AE only gets paid on customer launch. And the launch team gets paid on the launch as well, but we've instrumented that team to be extremely focused on what we call the growth potential score. So it's essentially like how much more could be done to optimize the configuration of this customer. So we've got this model. We know what configuration components are correlated with high GPV, so the revenue our customers make, gross payments volume, and therefore retention. And so that team is really oriented towards these like quality metrics. And so a rep, like an account executive, nothing happens when they close a deal. Like we cheer it, it goes off in Slack. We obviously measure, and we're gunning for a new revenue number every single month. But the thing that everybody's comp is built off of is the launch number. Like even mine, like my personal comp is not on the sales number, it is on overall company growth. So churn and the GPV growth, like all of that stuff. So we try as much as we can throughout the stack to align personal incentive with not just company incentive, but customer incentive. The payment on launch, and then the payment on and the focus on quality launch really means that the customer gets a much, much better outcome.
No, I love that. I did 2.5 years in vertically integrated SaaS company, built a division there from 0 to 15.
Yeah.
And I wish that the front end sales team had been a bit more focused on that. Felt like it was very transactional.
Yeah.
And then my team and the CS team always had to come in and like make sure that the customer actually got there. Because if they're not seeing the value, long tail, like it's got to churn.
Yeah.
Especially if there's no month-to-month commit or something like that.
Yeah, and we do month-to-month contracts as well.
Yeah.
Like we've made a bunch. I think one of the things that, if you zoom way out, one of the principles that has made Owner so successful is we've been pretty consistent at making the decision that's better for the long term over the short term. We've been lucky because we're still growing, so we're not sacrificing a ton of growth, but we could have grown probably 3x instead of 2.5. But if we wanted to really gas the top end number, but
at what cost?
Yeah, like you will have to deal with that churn at some point. It's just a matter of when. And so whether it's like month-to-month contracts or the sales compensation plan or how we invest product resources, like we just got out of 2026 planning, and one of the things that I said was like, hey, like I'm looking at the headcount allocation, and I would actually I can do with less if we want to put that to product. And my CMO said the same thing. It's like, actually, there's probably more headcount here than we need. Like, we should actually invest that over here in engineering. And again, like, could we go gas 2026 a little bit more with more sales and marketing resources? Yeah, but we're collectively all trying to build an enduring generational company, and our product is product is what matters. As much as I would love to take a lot of credit for, like our future IPO, like, no matter how good you are as a CRO, unless you have a winning product and you can continue to build a compounding advantage, there's no path to success.
I'm with you. It's a team sport. And unless you actually provide value, which ultimately comes from the product or the service that you're providing.
Yeah. And I think one of the other interesting lessons is if everybody can think holistically and everybody can have the same alignment of objective, and you can really avoid ever doing the finger pointing thing, then you can build this very high trust environment where we can make thoughtful trade-offs. Like if I hear this a lot from heads of sales or CROs, like people are very nervous about losing their jobs. And it's like, if I miss the number, like it
makes sense, right? It's what, 15 months on average now for a CRO?
Is it 15? Yeah. The number I hear is like 19, but I'm sure it's gone down as we've like washed out a bunch of the ZERP stuff. It is a reality, but if you play to that reality, like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you hyper optimize for the sales number, and if you hyper optimize for your team, then you put yourself outside of your first team. Like if we go back to Lencioni and some of his principles in 5 dysfunctions of a team, like you no longer have this like first team like executive alignment if you are too much protecting your reps and protecting your sales number and all of this stuff. And so I think we have one of the things that it's been fairly organic, but there's a very high trust relationship at the exec level. And like my CEO believes in me and I believe in my CPO, and we're making trade-offs that, if we allocate resources in this way and we end up having like not enough pipeline and we miss the number, like I am confident that the conversation will be like, okay, like we misallocated a little bit. We were all a little too optimistic that sales could just keep delivering, and we'll recalibrate. But you can't do that unless you've got founders who are open-minded and aren't operating in that sort of fight or flight mode, and they're scared of the board. It's a unique thing.
Unique thing for you too. Like you've done the 2 to 10 multiple times now, right?
Twice. Twice as a head of sales. And then Shopify, I inherited a business that was like 70 million in change in this point of sale, but it was all self-serve. And now we were trying to build a sales motion, and we took it to like almost 140 million. But like the team went from 5 to 80 people in basically 18 months, but it's a different context of the company.
I'd arguably say like the 1 to 10, 2 to 10 clip is the hardest one.
Yeah, it's not fun.
So how do you build the systems there to make that happen over and over again?
Again, a lot of it is longer term orientation, where you have to resist the urge to just only be firefighting and only be thinking about the next deal. You have to, for me, it's been really helpful to carve out time to system build, because you can only hire and ramp maybe like 6 reps as like a solo VP of sales managing people direct. And then you need systems. Like you need to be thoughtful about building like just the bare bones of an onboarding and a positioning framework, and like you can call it a sales methodology, but just like roughly what do we do across stages, and here are the things we want to do, and you just have to pull yourself out when it is extremely difficult, because it is like an existential fight every quarter, basically, when you're in that like 2 to 10 journey. But it's about carving out the time. And the nice thing is with AI, like you can generate so much of this stuff so easily. So like you can run an ad hoc training with a couple reps on how you think about objection handling. You dump the transcript into a model. I've got this enablement prompt, so it's got like a mixture of experts structure in it, and I give it exactly how I want the outputs to look, and you can have AI build that prompt. That's how I built that sort of enablement prompt. And so now you can start to generate content in a fraction, like literally a quarter of the time that it would take me to build like a decent training. I was able to sort of churn them out even when we didn't have the resources that we do now. And the other piece of it is like we just invested way earlier than most people would. And, that is because we are very much on the venture track. We knew we were going to raise money and we are playing to go big or go home. And because that's what venture is. Like either you want to play that game and you're all competing for power law outcomes, or you got to do a totally different track. And so I'm talking about this version of things, which isn't for everybody, but
there's definitely things in what you guys have done, especially around the way you use AI, the way that you're driving that efficiency, that bootstrap companies would die to be able to understand.
Yeah. And that's the talk I'm giving here at GTM 25 is how to think about the order of operations in how you're layering AI into the organization. And one of the big messages is like, there's no answers waiting for you, like to just be given. There's no course, there's no consultant that can solve it for you, but like you can hire great people like you guys and as a supplement, but like as a revenue leader, you need to understand AI from a first principles perspective. And if you're listening to this and you don't know the difference between pre-training and post-training, and you don't understand like how to give structure to Gen AI to reduce hallucination, like unless you understand some of these like really like basics, then you probably need to go like do that work. And there isn't really a course, unfortunately. Like
it's a lot of YouTube.
It's on YouTube and it's on X, basically. And the resource I always point people to is Andre Karpathy's like first few videos.
Okay.
He's got like a 3-hour deep dive on how models work, and it will explain all of the basics. And once you understand the basics, then why AI acts the way it does makes a lot more sense. And then he's got another 3-hour video on how he uses it. And this is like a year and a bit old, so I'm sure some of it could use some update. But like you can go through a bunch of that and be like, okay, I know the foundations now. I know why these models operate the way they do, but you have to, if you want to survive over the next few years, in my humble opinion, as a revenue leader, you have to have like a very native first principles understanding of these tools. You don't have to vibe code all your own stuff, and you don't have to necessarily do all the prompt engineering, the context engineering, but you need to understand it so that you can understand.
Let the AI do the prompt engineering for you.
Yeah. I take my crap, I'm just like, I whisper flow into prompt cowboy and like my shitty prompt, my bad prompt, we can edit that. And it'll like fix it up for me, or I'll have ChatGPT like, be my prompt creation agent but you have to understand this.
Well, I think too, like a lot of revenue leaders think that they just type something as ChatGPT and it's going to give them like the answer without recognizing that it's trying to figure out what word you want next.
So yeah.
And it's guessing.
Yeah.
It's an educated guess, and it's doing a ton of computations on all the attention that happens within those different nodes. But like most people think, oh no, like it's telling me something. It's not gospel truth.
Very much so. And like you got to go learn the prompt engineering. Like why you can ask the same question with 2 variants of prompts, and you can get wildly different outputs.
Yeah, and you can ask the same prompt 10 different times, and you get 8 different answers.
Yeah. And so until you understand that, it's hard to build an AI native go-to-market, because you'll be left with like cool demos that don't really work in production, or you'll just like misapply things and not really get the output you want because you're missing these first principles and these like primitives. And one of the challenges is like you can't outsource that. Everybody wants to outsource it. Everybody wants to like hire an AI guy, or like my RevOps team will do it. But like we're fundamentally going into a place where you don't want to just take like a human process and like replace it with AI.
Yep.
You're like, what does a completely new version of this look like if, research is free and pretty good, and you could scale customer interactions in all of these different ways, through avatar, through chat, through this, that, and the other. And so you like, once you start to understand the art of the possible, then you have to rethink sort of the foundations. Doesn't mean your whole go-to-market org will be like AI and you're going to replace all the reps. That's not it. And I think that can be a bit of a fallacy sometimes. But I find myself calling to revenue leaders to just like go do the work and figure it out. And like it's not easy. You got to find the time. It's always like me sitting on the couch after the kids go down with like an AirPod in, watching YouTube. My wife's like, "You're obsessed. Like, what are you doing over there? Like, can we just watch a movie?" I'm like, yeah. But like, I'm just watching this YouTube.
Yeah,
You got to find
I get that a lot of time. So, speaking of the human side, you've spent so much time developing frameworks around how to develop leaders. And I think that's like a big unlock for most companies, right? You've got a really great sales leader, but they don't know how to multiply themselves.
Yeah. So mid-year last year, we started to build our revenue leadership academy. And so we're taking the most important principles of managing people and distilling it down into these modules, and then doing a pretty rigorous, like in-depth training with frontline managers. Well, it's really like lieutenants down. So they get to train the trainer, and then they're presenting the content. And then we've got coaching. So we've got, coaching sims through Avara. So, you can use these AI sims to teach reps, and we have rep manager versions of it. But, we're going through the basic components. So one of the first ones we built was our operating methodology. How do you run a meeting? How do you run a one-on-one? When should you have a meeting? And I've got a bunch of rules for that.
So when do you run a meeting?
So it's easier to talk about what a meeting is not for. A meeting is not for an update. Like if you are speaking for 80% of the time in the meeting, that should be an Loom video and a document.
Okay.
We are a hybrid company. We have a lot of remote, and we have got a San Francisco and a Toronto office, but we still try to operate like a remote company, like asynchronous writing, like it's a document culture, because then people can review thoughtfully and comment.
Yeah.
And so meetings are not for updates. If you're going to book a recurring meeting, it has to have like a 6-week expiry, because what you have is, because we're doing this project, we should set a recurring meeting, but those meetings never go away. So you just keep adding every time you're doing a new thing. We call them for important things, we call them Tiger Team meetings.
Yeah.
And so you just keep layering on like things. We should have a sales and onboarding sync, and then we should have a this and that. And some of those are important to drive alignment in a particular period of time. And then it's just everybody getting together and like, oh yeah, things are going pretty well. Like I'm on track with my project. Like, great. We've all just sort of wasted 30 minutes times 6. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
And so like that should just be a written update. So at the end of every week, so this is part of the operating methodology. At the end of every week, every leader writes a Maple update. So Maple is metrics. So what are your KPIs?
The fact that you're Canadian and it's Maple.
Yeah. I built Maple when I ran the Canadian market at Shopify, and so now it's come everywhere.
That's fair.
So metrics advanced. So what did you advance that week? What's planned? P is for planned for next week. Learnings, because you want to share learnings and what did you learn from customers, or like just interesting things that people should know. And then E is emergencies. Like what do you really need help with? And so everybody does that. Everybody sees everybody's Maple. There's like a cascading of it. And usually Sunday nights, I like read my leaders, and sometimes I'll double click into the manager ones if I'm interested. So now you don't have to do, like a 90-minute stand up where everybody like talks about what they're doing. Like that's sort of a waste. And if things are good, I'm just going to skim and I'm going to spend time on like what needs where we need. And then we pull out the topics from those updates into like our SLT agenda. And so, but like we had to reteach this methodology and
Sure.
the basics of how we want to operate. And now the managers have like a very different drumbeat. And so we do a thing called chop wood, carry water. It sort of came out of this like recent, we zero based all the meetings. We basically coming out of that, we deleted every single meeting, and you didn't get to like keep some. You had to delete every single meeting and then add things back fresh. And so, yeah, you might forget some meetings, and then you're just like, that meeting's never going to come back again. Great. If it's important enough, people will be like, oh, like, dude, like we need to talk about this every week. But now the managers do what's called chop wood, carry water, which is for the first 3 hours of their day, they do nothing but coach their reps, like make dials themselves, and sort of be on the front line with their teams, be in sort of like the sales loft call studio, and it's like no internal stuff, just driving their teams and the numbers. And so then we did our coaching mastery stuff. We're building the crucial conversations course right now, and we'll just like we'll continue to build these modules, and then like every 24 months we'll just start back at the beginning.
Oh, interesting.
Because each module could be 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll just rotate through the whole thing. Because we'll have new leaders, or people need a refresh, and people systematically just keep sharpening that toolkit.
So what's a day in the life of the manager? The second half, is that on client calls, or are you guys in systems for that instead?
Depends on the team. So yeah, a bunch of the AE managers will be on calls. Like there's an expectation that they're on a certain number of demos every single week, or there's internal meetings, or some of the managers actually do a bunch of, we call it ghost busting. So if there's stuck launches and something comes back to sales from launch, oftentimes the managers will just like rip through those cases for their reps, keep their reps focused on closing deals. They'll go, hey, I'm the manager, when's call? Because Cliff said that you had an issue, wanted to help like get that back on track. And so that's one of the motions they'll run. And it depends on what's going on. LWAM, like it's last week of the month.
Okay.
It's LWAM right now. So the manager's like on demos, on callbacks, getting deals closed. They're very much on the front lines. The BDR managers are making calls, booking meetings, ghost busting for their teams.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's
everyone in it together.
Yeah. If you want, sales is hard, and SMB is a grind. And if you want to, like we do, ask for a lot of intensity and a lot of effort, you got to put in the effort yourself as a manager. And, we believe very much in servant leadership. And so, but we try to bring structure to that. I think the world is so noisy, and it's too difficult to manage people today just to be like, oh yeah, do this thing. It's like, no. This is sort of everything, how I approach building revenue orgs. Like, you need a structure and a drumbeat and a rhythm for these things.
Break it down into jobs to be done.
Yeah. So we have our rituals. Chop wood, carry water is the ritual of that first 3 days. And then there's like a structured approach. And the weekly maple is a ritual. And then how do we operate LWAM is a ritual. And so there's a drumbeat to the business where you can drop people into who have like never managed before, or new managers into our business, and they can much more rapidly get up to speed. Like I look at our internally promoted managers. I don't think a lot of businesses can get managers proficient in doing their job at the rate we do.
Oh, most of them don't train them.
Yeah, and here we're sort of psychotic about it.
Love that. Shifting tact. You recently moved, young family. How do you manage all the things that you're doing? Like, we're at this conference now with a bunch of other high functioning executives. So like, what are your rituals?
A lot of help. My wife is a superstar. She has all the kids stuff handled. She tells me where I need to be for that stuff. And I certainly couldn't do what I do without her. And so very fortunate. She doesn't have to work. Fortunate for that. But that's what makes sort of our family run. I build a lot of these structures for myself. We went to this sauna cold plunge, this thing, today, and I was talking about how I use snippets. So I use text expander for it, and so the things that I'm going to do a lot, I generally have text expanders for. So I have a podcast. When I want to reach out to somebody, I just go Z outreach, and then it goes and puts in the text.
I do the same thing with my Apple keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I've got snippets in Superhuman, and I've got, like for my podcast intake, there's the scheduling snippet, and it's got the link to the Calendly, so they can pick their slots. I don't have to go back and forth. And then they get the intake form through Tally, because Tally Web hooks into my Clay table. So they fill out the Tally Web form, and then it goes into the Clay table, and it researches a bunch of their stuff, and then it takes in the Tally inputs from it. And so I try to build just like easy. I try to build ways to keep things that I do a lot easier and like more streamlined. AI is like I couldn't do a bunch of this pre-AI. The podcast I can,
Unless you had an EA.
I have a great EA, and she's really good, but I still don't think I could do it all, because the podcast newsletter, when I was doing it by hand I did the first few by hand so that I could give that output to AI to build a prompt to have a consistent structure. It took me like 3 hours to do it well, and it was the first time. But now I've got a Claude project with this monster prompt in it and and the examples. And so now, after I just get the Riverside transcript, I drop it into the Claude project. It gives me like a newsletter that really sounds like me, because the prompt has my writing style, tone of voice, all this stuff. And then I do like a 25-30 minute edit, and I'm like really impressed with the output. And so, yeah, the systems, it's like great partner, a bunch of systems. And I just like, the reality is like I work a lot. Like I work, I spend time with my family, I exercise, and there's like not a lot outside of that.
Hobbies?
I bike and run and lift weights and rock climb with my daughter. And so like when I want to see friends, like I go for a run with them, or I go for a bike ride with them, and try to make those things match. But it's a lot of
See my friends at the hockey rink.
Yeah. Like I see my friends who have kids a decent amount, because now I can bring like family time with friend time. But yeah, there's certainly sacrifices. Like I wish I could see my friends socially more. I wish I could, like chill out. I don't have a good chill out like switch, but there's a bunch of things that would be great. But if you want to do this, you have to be realistic about what it takes. And I'm cool with that. I'm great. I'm great with those trade-offs, and I know that it's for a good reason. I love, the nice thing is like, I really like what I do. I love building teams. I love teaching people how to be great leaders, and I get a lot of energy and fulfillment from it. I interviewed Dr. Michael Gervais for my podcast, who is a high performance psychologist, and he worked with the Seahawks in their Super Bowl run, a bunch of Olympic teams. And he talks about purpose-driven leadership.
Yeah.
And to try to move away from a performance-driven identity. And so I find, because I am really driven by a service to others, like I feel like I'm in service to my leaders to help them launch their careers, and all these young reps, I'm trying to give them like the best career platform that they could possibly ask for. And that's like really fulfilling. And I get to serve this awesome mission of supporting small business people, that if you can align those things, then working a ton of hours and sacrificing the other things, it's manageable, and I feel like I'm doing meaningful work. So I think if you want to get way more into that, go listen to my podcast with Michael Gervais, and his podcast, Finding Mastery. I think like that's a thing that we could do a lot more of. Like, get away from, I'm trying to be a CRO and make a bunch of money and get to X stage. Those are all extrinsic. Those are external things that will give you like a much more fleeting sense of fulfillment, versus trying to build something intrinsic, like being a servant leader, having a mission, feeling like you're living with purpose. Long answer to your question, but like, no, that's how I keep going. I feel like
great answer. It deeply resonates.
Yeah. So I think anybody who's like works a lot and is successful, that has to come from somewhere like deep, or else you just can't keep doing it. Like, I've been grinding for 17 years or whatever it is at this point. And yeah, you can't do it and not burn out and not need like to take a bunch of time off unless you are living in alignment and living with purpose, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to? Oh, wow, that went right to time.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. This was fun.